the American people stand firm in the faith which has inspired this nation from the beginning. We believe that all men have a right to equal justice under law and equal opportunity to share in the common good. We believe that all men have the right to freedom of thought and expression. We believe that all men are created equal because they are created in the image of God. From this faith, we will not be moved.
Hello, God bless America, and welcome to the Freedom of Thought podcast. I am your host, Paladino Joey, or Joey Awajan. Freedom of Thought is available on all of your favorite podcasting apps. It is also, of course, featured on Spotify, so if you can download and listen to the show on that one, it helps the progress of the show, and I greatly appreciate anybody that does that. You don't have to. It's definitely not required. You're listening on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Odyssey, whatever, Audible, anything like that. It's totally fine. Alexa, now don't turn Alexa. No, I'm just kidding. Yep, if you're listening on those, it's totally fine, and thank you so much, and really appreciate you. I'll talk about other ways to help the show later on if I get to it. It's not gonna, I don't need to be on here just plug. It'll probably drive you crazy, but yep. It's always a great pleasure to be back on board with you once again today. So thank you again. Just kind of looking up in the sky right now. I'm seeing, I believe, what is Mars, and you can hardly see it. It's the weirdest, darndest thing. Already there's fires everywhere in northern Minnesota, and it's like, May 17th? It's the evening of May 17th at this stage. Hampshire Park, Golden Valley, Minnesota. Okay, just kind of hanging out, doing a show mobile style, because getting out of work, getting away from work early. Not out of work early, but away from work quickly, rather than messing around too long. There's a lot of fires already. I don't know. It was awfully wet here last week, kind of off and on rain. It rained on Thursday a little bit. It rained quite a bit on Saturday, so it interrupted our lawn service, my second job type of thing. Yet there's fires everywhere north of here. I'm sure they got less rain, but still, doesn't that seem odd a little bit in May? It seems kind of quick, like June, July, August. That's kind of usually when you start seeing smoke, so I don't know. Maybe I'm just a naive person, but it seems kind of strange to me. Another interesting find, my mother, I don't know if I mentioned this I might have mentioned this on a recent podcast. No, it couldn't have been. That was like last week. So when I do lawns, oftentimes I stop at my parents for lunch because they offer that. They're generous and kind about that. Then I can clean up and get ready to go to work, like my regular job. Before that, though, in the early morning, kind of hanging out waiting for my nephews to come, as we're going to work, my mom spotted a bluebird, which apparently is, they're not really around here much. So they're not really around here at all. When you look at the maps, you Google them and such. The eastern bluebird, they come here for breeding in the spring. So it's a possibility. But in this case, though, see, the eastern bluebird has an orange, tummy, so to speak, orange chest and belly and all that, where this one was all blue. So that's actually a mountain bluebird. And the closest they usually get just for breeding alone, not like permanent resident, but breeding alone, is way southwestern South Dakota. So he's way, he or she, it looks like a boy though, because it was brighter, way off. So very interesting to think about that, kind of way far away from home. Their permanent habitat is more like Colorado, Wyoming, Arizona, places like that, Nevada. Not in a part of the country I'd probably rather live right now than Minnesota, regardless if it's summer, winter, spring, fall. Spring, I like it here, at least the month of May, and that's it. The month of May here is wonderful, but the rest of the year, I don't know. June's pretty and everything, but of course you got Pride Month, and I think we're all kind of tired of seeing that and hearing that and getting that shoved down our throats every second. It'd be nice to enjoy the month of June the way we'd like to. So you see rainbows because maybe you're playing with the garden hose a little bit, and wow, there's a rainbow, and it looks really nice. And you think about that, like you're at the pool, and the water's kind of splashing around, and you see rainbows. I'd rather see rainbows that way instead of every time you go into Target, every time you go into anywhere, even in the workplace nowadays, dare I say, It's going to be everywhere. I just know it. It was like that last year. It's probably going to be even more this year. You go to sports games, it's Pride Night. You go to college games, it's Pride Night. You know, sports is in like Core 4, Major League Sports. It's Pride Night for this, it's Pride Night for that. Pride, pride, pride. And I don't know. I'm not trying to hate anybody because I don't. Jesus loves everybody. God loves everybody. But doesn't mean we agree. It doesn't mean God agrees with what they're doing. It certainly doesn't mean us Christians agree with what's going on either, though. It's not, they're not supposed to do all that. It's just the way it is. Maybe I'm not supposed to get all uppity and judgy, but I don't know. It's not something I'm in agreement with. I certainly don't hate a single person at all. Really appreciate if they're a friend, but at the same time, it is what it is. I don't mean to go off into that necessarily, but we are getting closer and closer to it, of course. So, and I was kind of thinking about that today a little bit, like, oh boy, we're getting closer and closer to that. And here I go, kind of rambling on and on and on. But I suppose that's what freedom of thought is in a lot of ways. And it is, I don't know, it just seems unseasonable in a way. Every year it gets weirder and weirder and stranger. And like fires in May, early to mid-May. Now it's mid-May already because time flies faster than ever. Heck, God said he was going to speed up time. It sure feels like it, doesn't it? But I think more or less he meant that as like technology. Like, holy cow, it seems like yesterday we had regular tube TVs. Now we have freaking HD cell phones. So, okay, and that's like old news already. The first HD cell phones came out in 2012. So, I don't know. Every year is just so strangely different because this year it seems like there's smoke everywhere right away, which is weird. Obviously, there was the haze early on because of the whole chemtrail thing, and I posted a video on the Facebook page for Freedom of Thought, facebook.com/freedom of thought. I'm not sure if the link came up real well, and they probably don't want it to, where the whole chemtrail thing that I've been talking about and bringing up, it sounds like the conversation was really going on with the Bill Gates of the world and others that are, global warming cultists. We're talking going back 30 years, early 90s, like 92. So it's real. It is absolutely real. And people that say, that I'm crazy or somebody else is crazy, it's real. I'm not going to be sitting outside watching it every second and flipping out about it. But it's hard to miss, say, before all this fire crap started. It was hard to miss back in March because there weren't fires in March in Minnesota. I'm sorry. A little too cold and wet. Just a little bit. And early April. When you're looking at the sunset. February. Sunsets and sun, kind of getting near sunset. And the whole dang sky is hazy. And it was every single day. You could see some clouds and then there's haze everywhere. Didn't make sense. It looked like a hot, humid day, when it's not a hot, humid day. There's stuff in the atmosphere out there to kind of dim the sun, so to speak. So supposedly that can prevent the sun's heat rays, so to speak, from warming the earth a little bit to prevent global warming. Whereas then you get the record cold, this and that. And yes, I'm sorry. Yep. And of course, there's definitely side effects that have been going on and all that with, again, the podcast that I mentioned all the time with Jim Calhoun, of course, available on Shortwave Radio as well. The Off the Grid podcast, again, you can look that up. I've talked about it many times. Jim Calhoun, and of course, a close friend of Truth to Ponder, and he's on that show once a week as well on Wednesdays. What am I even getting to? But yeah, the side effects are everywhere, and he's the one that was talking about it, Jim Calhoun. I don't want to make every show about this. I'm probably going to tire you out and such, but it just seems like it's just getting weirder and weirder. And I don't know if the fires are related to it somehow. Probably not, but something just reeks of foul play a little bit. And it's the darndest thing. Minnesota, of all places, has the most fires right now. And you have fires way up in like northern Manitoba. In June, July, August, yeah, there were quite a few of those in northern Manitoba. We're talking, again, like not 700 miles, 1,000 miles from here. Stuff like that. 1,000 miles away from Minneapolis and St. Paul, Minnesota. pretty darn crazy to think that there are fires that far north of the Twin Cities here in Minnesota. It's the darndest thing. California, where Livia lives, they get fires all the time. There's not too much, like 1 or 2, 3 maybe right now. In Minnesota, it looked like upwards of like 12, 13, 14. How? Why? And there's app like say like the WeatherBug app. It's on there. Like say when it shows fire weather, open it up and you'll see little flames all over the place, and that's where actual fires are going on, and that's where you get your quote unquote evidence or information as to where you're seeing fires, like in different parts of the country. A few years ago in 21, holy Toledo. I remember my birthday, there was a massive fire in the northern Minnesota, like the forest. You could smell the pine wood. It was that powerful. It smelled good, but that's the wrong way you want to go about smelling pine wood. It's one thing to have the fire pit going, but when like, like wooded areas in northern Minnesota are your fire pit, okay, that's not a good thing. Again, it smelled really good, but it was weird. And there were like alerts and alarms everywhere. Hey, don't even be outside, blah, blah, blah. That was my birthday of 21. And then California, you had fires that were like insanely big, and firemen were getting killed. It's unbelievable. The fire was so intense and moving so quickly that firemen were getting killed. So I guess today's theme is kind of fires and what the heck is going on. Like, I guess there's fires everywhere again, but for it to be going on in Minnesota, northern Minnesota, this early, it's kind of weird. It's very strange. Why? I mean, if any of you have any information as to what's going on, it'd be nice to know. I've heard, it's been a little drier up there, but not that dry. Has it? Has it been that dry? And again, the temperature hasn't really exceeded much anyway. Is everybody up there just being reckless with their campfires and fire pits and stuff? I guess. I mean, my God, look at, if you could see the map now, it just blow you away. Just blow you away. How many fires there are. And again, Iowa's a little bit. Even west of here, there's one pretty close in, it doesn't show the city. It says only 90 miles away. Close to Wilmer, Minnesota. That would be a little bit southwest of Wilmer, close to Raymond, Minnesota. I don't know much about Raymond, but Wilmer I know a little bit. So it's really interesting that there's this many. And it's just the darndest thing. Another one's only 90 miles away. Close to nothing. Okay. That's not true. It's not even showing any cities. I guess it kind of is in the middle of nowhere. Maybe it's all a lie. It's all made up, and they're people. Yeah, I don't know. But sorry if I'm babbling on and on and on about it. But it's just it seems a little strange to me. I don't know. I guess people are being reckless. There was some windy weather a while back. Maybe people were lighting fires and they shouldn't have. I feel a wonderful cool breeze on my face right now. But it's 22 mile an hour winds in these areas too, so that probably isn't helping the cause. Whew, that's kind of bad. But still interesting to think about that this is going on, and of all places, our state here. Well, my state. Some of you might be listening from other parts of the world and other parts of the country, more or less in other parts of the country. Mexico has like 1 million fires all over the place, but it's a very hot place. Holy Toledo. Mexico is just ablaze. Crazy. With that, I think I've babbled enough. And again, I mean, if you have any information, what could be causing the fires in northern Minnesota, I'd like to know personally. I think it's strange. If you think it's just a normal thing, I guess it is. It doesn't seem like it to me. So with that, just going to cut. Yeah, I'm going to keep this pretty short. This is just kind of a quick little getting you on board. Maybe this wasn't the best way to go about things, though, with the 50th episode of the show. So this is the 50th episode of Freedom of Thought. So darndest thing ever. Might as well do some brief history, I guess, as we wrap up this episode. It's like I'm almost forgetting. This is the 50th episode. So, a few years ago, back in, it's been a little bit, late 2020, right after the election, I'm like, I'd been thinking about jumping on board the political bandwagon after being in multiple sports shows. Hadn't done Video Game Flashback yet. Wasn't even thinking about it. It wasn't even a glint in my eye at that stage, even though the feed existed. But I'd been thinking about it. I'd created the feed back in sometime in I think it was sometime in mid to late 2019 for Freedom of Thought, and then just kind of let it sit there. The name existed, the description existed, no logo and no shows were created for about a year. And then it's like, okay, I better just get out. Yeah, I finally got off the sidelines and started when clearly there was some foul play going on with the election in 2020. So I'm going to check this quickly to see the exact. Yep, Keep Up the Fight, November 12th, 2020, right after Veterans Day in 2020. So that was episode 1. That's when things got started. And I've been around ever since, off and on. A few hiatuses here and there. Oftentimes during the spring, when I would get into cleanups and such, or just for whatever reason, I just wasn't doing shows. I think that was the spring of 21 and late winter of 21. Wonderful. Wow, what a wonderful time that was. Yeah, there was like about a 3-month hiatus, and then I kind of came back, and then hiatus is off and on here and there, but I've tried to keep up with the show the last few months as best possible. So yeah, I had 3 shows in April, 3 shows in February. So I've been reasonably keeping up, a little better than I had been for a short time there. So thank you so much for listening to this show, being a part of it, and anybody out there, tell your friends about the show if you could. We made it to 50 episodes, and believe it or not, in the podcasting world, there was a time that the 50th episode was a pretty interesting milestone, a pretty good milestone in the podcasting world. Podcasts just didn't last that long back then, and in fact, they were a pretty new thing still. In 2008, when I was starting to podcast, I remember like, wow, 50 episodes. It was a big deal. Now, I don't know, now that I've done thousands of episodes, well, not thousands, but over 1,000 total episodes when you combine Purple Mafia, which is a Vikings show, Minnesota Vikings, of course, Brave the Wild, Minnesota Wild, Timberwolves Explosion, Minnesota Timberwolves. I started with paladinolive, video game flashback, and of course this one, Showtime and T-Wolves, was a short one with me and Vince Germano. It was maybe the first international podcast in the history of the world in terms of, it may have been, where the 2 hosts were from completely different countries, completely different hemispheres. Yeah, one was from Golden Valley, Minnesota, and the other was from Victoria, Melbourne in Victoria, Australia, where we talked about the Timberwolves and Los Angeles Lakers. So, pretty crazy stuff. Not sure you needed to hear that. I apologize if you think I'm babbling and talking about nothing, but I guess we'll kind of celebrate the 50th episode that way, in a sense of like, it's been an interesting run. Obviously, we saw Joe Biden illegally get in office. We got to see, all kinds of other frustrating things. The market crash, more bull crap going on. This is all after that George Floyd stuff. Obviously, I don't want to get too crazy. The 20-year anniversary of 9/11, I really enjoyed doing that one. Not because I enjoy 9/11, but like what happened. But I enjoyed the information that was spoken of in that one. Cryptocurrency and mailbag, a good memory. Early May, one of the best springs in forever. But also just a really fun episode. And when there was a lot more optimism with cryptocurrency at the time than there has been. But you can definitely still make money of it. One where I actually called I called a member of the media, a local member of the media, a jackass in the title of the episode. Pat Kessler, who is a commentator on, I guess it's WCCO, Channel 4. Yeah. Retired but won't go away, that kind of thing. He's been retired for a couple of years now. And he just won't go away. He goes on Dan Barrero. And before he retired, he was fairly objective. Of course, I'm sure it's all just a front, a mask for what he really was. And yeah, when people retire, supposedly, then they come out and show who they really are. You realize what an absolute jackass some of these people are. Impossible of having seriously, impossible at having an honest point of view. Just as leftist, like almost to a childish nature. Point of view of the world, like, well, this and that, they're incapable of like thinking outside the box. And it just drives me nuts that people like that can make the livings they do. And we're talking good livings here. So drives me nuts. Yeah, absolutely crazy. The one show that did really well was the 20% service charge back around my birthday. Learning about that at Benihana. I think a lot of people were stunned by that. Like, where'd that come from? Yeah, so now that I've done enough, though, again, thank you for helping Freedom of Thought get to 50 episodes. Special thanks to Mark Carlson. Obviously, you've been absolutely wonderful to the show in so many ways. So many ways. Obviously, the commenting, the passion for this country. Really appreciate you. Gerald Serang, really appreciate you as well. Fine patriot coming out of Nebraska. Kind of like Jim Calhoun there, but definitely a different career than Jim Calhoun, who's basically a farmer. And then you have Lee Hepner coming in out of Canada. Thank you very much. Great comments, and thank you for listening to the show. Special shout out to Tom Holden. I don't think I've mentioned you on this show before. I didn't realize you were a regular listener, and he is an old friend from my service days. Awesome guy. He was a soldier during the Vietnam era, but they actually didn't send him to Vietnam. He was one of the lucky ones. They sent him to Germany. So during that time. So, and at least that's what I said. That's what I think I heard. Yeah. I remember when we'd have our conversations. An absolute patriot and an awesome, awesome man, in a cobalt blue state that we live in. We're two shining lights here for you. At least we'd like to say we are. And Tom, you are a shining light. You are, and I really appreciate you very much. Donna Aspinwall, absolutely. How could I not mention her? She's from the same place. But earlier, Champlin, Minnesota. Now was from. Of course, I'm not going to give her. I'm not. Well, it's just a city, so it's like I'm not giving out addresses or anything. Tom Holden's from Plymouth. Donna's from Champlin now. She was in Brooklyn Center earlier, I believe, almost by Brooklyn Park there. I've been a Brooklyn Park resident myself, but that was for 3 years a while back, right after I got married. But okay, well, thank you again for listening. This ended up being significantly longer than I was planning because it is the 50th episode, so I might want to say something here. Unless I accidentally closed it again, which, okay, I didn't. Thank you, Lord. Thank you, Jesus. I didn't accidentally close the voice recording app, but I'm also trying to keep it a little bit further away from my mouth. I think the last episode, the audio was a little bit meh. It sounded like I was too close to a phone, literally too close to a phone because of the mobile episode. Thank you again so much, again, to all of you who have been so kind to the show. And tell your friends about it. Livia, a big shout out to you as well, coming in out of California there in a cobalt blue state, lots of left-wing politics. You are an absolute shining light coming in out of China. So thank you. Anybody else out there, introduce yourself to me on the Facebook page, on the Twitter account at Freedom of Thou, because thought doesn't fit, 76. Introduce yourself to me. I want to meet you. Not necessarily, I don't expect you to come and meet me in person. If you do, that's great. I'd love to meet Mark Carlson. I'd love to meet Gerald. I'd love to meet Livia. Obviously, I do know Donna and Tom in person, in real life, of course. They're from here. But yeah. And even another person I should shout out to that I think he posted for the first time on there, but he was a police officer during the time in St. Louis Park that I was in my service job. Brian Jensen, just in case you're listening. I'm not sure if he listens. I think so, but maybe if he posted on the page last time around. What an awesome guy. Absolutely awesome guy. Hope to hear from you again, and hope to hear from any of you that have listened to this show, maybe, and you've never met me, or we've never been introduced. I never, saw your name. You never, or anything. It'd be nice to say hello, just to kind of chime in sometime, a private message or something on Facebook, Twitter, or just tweeting on Twitter. Love to hear from you. But wishing all of you a wonderful month of May. I'll probably have another show coming up not too long from now, especially during Memorial Weekend and such. I got to have something to say about that, especially like veterans like Mark Carlson. You deserve all the respect in the world, honestly. Tom Holden's a veteran too, but he wasn't actually in Vietnam. At least that's what I remember when we had our conversations. Mark Carlson was in Iraq. The first Iraq one, way back at the beginning of the 90s there, when H.W. Bush said, kill the SOB. Yeah. So, but unfortunately, H.W. Bush, we've learned over the years, not as good as we thought. No, really, really not, unfortunately. At the time, seemed like a really good president, but I don't know. There was always something missing from that guy versus Uncle Ronnie, let me tell you. Uncle Ronnie, Ronald Reagan. With that said, I better shut up now, and thank you again so much for listening. And 50 episodes in, and let's have 50,000 more, huh? Why not? Take care, and God bless the United States of America.